So once again, good morning to one and all for taking your time and planning to attend the webinar. So as I have briefed about myself, so just to quickly summarize or before we begin with the webinar, I would like to introduce myself. So myself Anant Mudgal, I am heading the managed security services, specifically the managed SOC department for Varutra InfoShare, wherein we are taking care of the corporate security as well as our end customer security. Along with that, today Miss Purnima will be working with me, or she will be coordinating with me, and she will be part of this webinar as well. She is working with us as an L2 consultant. Purnima, just accept the participant request. I can see that there are some requests.
Sure, Anand.
Right. So let us continue with the webinar, and I really appreciate everybody taking out time from their busy schedule. So to start with, before we go ahead or go further, I would like to, so on a high level, I would like to brief on the objectives of the webinar first, so that it will be very much of clear to the audience and the participants what all things we are going to cover. So to start with, we will be quickly introducing about ourselves and our about our security operation services, which specifically targeting towards SOC as a service model for this particular webinar. Then we will be having a look into how we are integrating all those log sources, how we are collecting the log sources, and followed by the reporting and the alerting activities. Then we will move on to see how our customers are getting benefited by our SOC as a service model, along with our USPs, that is CTP Cyber Threat Post Portal and MSSD application. So we are going to have a look into these applications on a high level. And as the topic of this particular webinar says, intelligence-led security operations monitoring. So how this intelligence is coming into picture, how traditional SOC have been migrated to next generation SOC, like SOC 2.0, by leveraging next gen SIEM, next gen firewall, and all those AI and ML-based solutions as well. So we will have a look into all those factors and metrics as well, which include our Mitre attack framework, the NIST framework, and the zero trust model of cybersecurity. And at the last, of course, any of our partners or even clients, they will expect the return on investment, like how much they are investing into it, and what will be the return on investment for their business operations. Ultimately, having secured infrastructure, good network uptime. So a quick introduction about our organization, that is Varutra Consulting and Infosys Systems. So we are a team of experts who are primarily into security consulting, that is primarily into security services, vulnerability assessment and penetration testing services, which includes infrastructure pen testing, web, mobile application pen testing. We have a team of expertise who are also into audit and compliance services, which includes right from ISO, ISMS, PCI DSS, and all sort of audit and activities. We are also into virtual CISO offering services, along with the few of the training programs, which are covered under our Spark training. For additional information, I would encourage the audience to highly go through our website, www.varutra.com, to explore more about us, about our services, and you can get in touch with us for any of the professional services which you're looking forward for. To highlight few of our credentials, to start with Gartner. So we have been recognized by Gartner into their VAPT and application security services twice. We have been encouraged by them. Along with that, we have been listed into their product services portfolio for our mobile application pen testing solution, which we call it as MAS, that is Mobile Application Security Testing Suite. Again, additional information is already available on our website. So people who are interested to explore more about this particular product, please have a look at our website. Since we are headquartered into India, we are a certain empaneled IT security organization wherein we are authorized to perform testing of all those government entities which belong to India specifically. We are an ISO certified organization wherein again it acts as a credibility and a value wherein wherever we are offering the services, it surely adds a value to our portfolio. In 2018, we were recognized by the CEO magazine for the Company of Year in Information Security Consulting. In 2019, we were recognized by Silicon Review for top 30 entrepreneurs. And recently, in the year 2021, we have been recognized or been awarded in the category of Cyber Security Excellence Awards as a gold winner. Now coming to the main agenda of this particular webinar. So before we go into SOC and SOC as a service offering model and then intelligence to the SOC as a services, let us quickly summarize on the few basics of like what are the basic or key responsibilities of a security operations center, like what the team has to do, what are their primary roles and responsibilities likewise. So since it's a security operations center, it is bare minimum and an understandable factor that clients or partners or industries are looking for somebody who will take care of their information systems or information assets covering the entire infrastructure or their portfolio 24/7, which should include 24/7, that is round the clock security monitoring of all the information assets, detecting any alerts, abnormalities in the network, validating those alerts, whether those are false positives or true positives, ensuring that all those true positive alerts are being investigated and relevant tickets have been logged by the SOC analyst for the IT actions, wherein the IT team will come into picture and they will take the desired actions. Now, this is a traditional way of working across the industries wherever the SOC analysts are working. Like L1 analyst will monitor the alert. If required, L2 will come into picture for the validation. If in case the alert is of critical nature, L3 will come into picture and then a ticket will be logged for the IT action. Now, how we can leverage NIST framework into this particular activity will be covered into later slide. But again, to give a glimpse of what is NIST, NIST is they have certain set of standards or phases which they have defined, which are covered under protect, detect, respond, and recover. These are the primary four phases which NIST has defined. So they have a cyber security framework, NIST cyber security framework, which covers these four phases. And it is applicable not only for security operations, but everywhere where there is a cyber security, organizations or business groups can implement NIST cybersecurity framework. Now, how we are implementing it into our SOC as a service model, we will be covering it into later slides. Next is, since again SOC are primarily focused to detect, monitor, and response to cyber incidents, incident management will come into picture along with forensics investigation, be it hacking attempt, data breach, defacement, likewise. Along with that, nowadays, earlier there was a practice that the SOC analyst will work in isolation or in silos, wherein they will just have a watch on the consoles and alert or trigger the IT teams to take necessary actions. Modern days SOCs or SOC as a service model will work in a joint and in a collaborative way, wherein we will just act like as an extended security partner of the business group or the organization, wherein on a day-to-day basis there will be communications happening with the client IT team and our SOC analyst to bridge the communication gap and to ensure that responses are handled in an adequate way in a timely manner, followed by SLA and all those. And last and the foremost important thing is again assistance in crisis operations. So wherever there are any incidents reported, first thing is like SOC analyst or the SOC service provider should ensure that there should be no incidents reported, or since we all know that cybersecurity is a very evolving field and cyber attacks are also evolving day by day. So no service provider can give 100% guarantee. At the max, what we can always say is we will try to address all open issues, all cyber threats. We will try to mitigate them. We will control them, and we will try to reduce the attack surface as possible as. So coming to our specific approach, that is what we are following. We call it as a 360 view of the infrastructure security monitoring. So let me just cover up this entire slide. Yep. So again, following up or evaluating or evolving in our traditional SOC operations, then moving ahead with the NIST operations, we have come up with our benchmark or 5 phases or steps in iterative way, which we can say, or which I would like to say here is like starting with the process and procedures. So evaluating whether organizations are having any established processes, procedures on how to detect cyber incident, how to act on cyber incidents, followed by security threat intelligence, be it threat intelligence from external sources, from external feeds, or threat hunting for internal attacks and internal events. Moving ahead, post the processes and procedures are established or evaluated, the focus is towards the metrics. Like SOC setup has been done. Now, what are the SOC metrics? How the SOC performance will be evaluated? So, for an example, how many tickets have been logged for a particular day or for a particular duration? Whether those tickets have been closed in the desired SLA or not. One more instance which we can highlight or we can calculate here is mean time to detect and mean time to response. So SOC has reported that particular incident or alert, but IT has failed to take preventive actions or required actions on that particular incident. So again, there are multiple such performance metrics wherein SOC performance is being evaluated, and then organizations can take a call to see what are the loopholes or what are the gaps wherein they need to address. Now coming to the organization part, so organization, it again covers your people, process and technology parameters. Since we all know that the most vulnerable entity in the entire organization or in the entire infrastructure is like the human factor or the human element. We need to check whether security awareness trainings or such kind of webinars or information security flyers or such kind of communication has been communicated to those. Why we are talking specifically for people and processes and technologies, like of course Purnima will cover all those sample use cases which we have evaluated and are working on in our day-to-day operations. So the audience can figure it out why I'm emphasizing on all those factors at this stage. Governance is again like, now everything has been established, whether the organization, whether the SOC team and everything is as per the SOPs. So in case of missing SOPs or in case of missing processes, we will surely help out with the organization in defining the SOPs, in defining the policies on what should be done and in which way. And the entire baseline to this entire activities is the technology. So as we all know, SIM solution is the you can say heart or brain of an entire SOC setup, wherein without SIM solution, it is highly difficult or impossible to have a effective SOC setup or a SOC operation. So SIM is the base wherein all the cyber security technologies or solutions can be integrated or can be onboarded along with the traditional assets which are supposed to be covered under a SOC setup. So if you see the hierarchy or the pyramid, the base is this SIM solution. On top of that, we build processes. We cover the organization infrastructure assets by the defined processes. We define the metrics of how a SOC is performing and what are the areas of improvements. And at the last, we have the entire overall governance on the entire SOC operations. So this is how we leverage our service offerings and make sure that whatever we have committed to the client in terms of day-to-day security operations monitoring, incident response, cyber forensics, security threat advisories, likewise we are actually delivering all those required materials, or we are abiding by the SLA. Now coming to the security intelligence platform, on how, as I have briefed on the importance of SIM. So again, SIM earlier they used to come into traditional form. Now the technology has been moved and now they are coming into next gen form by having AI and ML based algorithms, UBA, then threat intelligence, even automated incident forensics likewise. So though SIM is not directly, we cannot say it as an SOAR technology. SOAR is altogether different part. So since objective of this particular webinar is to focus more towards SOC as a service via SIM, so I will not mix up two different topics here, but so we can say SOAR is again as an advanced version of an SIM solution, wherein SOAR is security, orchestration, automation, response. There are a couple of solutions available wherein they will come together and then they will generate a correlated alert wherein all the manual processes or day-to-day operations will be automated and auto actions will be taken on them. And only in cases of critical incident where there is a manual investigation required, they will ask or they will seek the assistance from a consultant. Now coming to the same part, as I have mentioned about migration of traditional SIM to next gen SIM. So if you can see at the left hand side of the screen, so all those are the we can say the target assets or the log sources, wherein we as a SOC service provider, we have to capture all those logs, all those events, all those activities happening on all those technologies, be it a server, be it a virtual appliance, physical appliance, likewise capturing all those logs and processing it into that SIM solution by the help of use cases, rules, policies, and correlation of all those alerts. So by taking all those log sources and defining certain use cases, if there is a policy violation or if there is any anomaly, only in those cases an alert will be triggered, wherein the SOC analyst will come into picture for the investigation. So security intelligence platform, if you can see at the bottom section again, it says it covers the data sources like information of the assets, the IP addresses, the host name, who is the user who's accessing those assets, the login, logout time, what are the applications running into it, who the user was, again as I have mentioned it into user behavior analytics. So again we have a use case for that particular part. And at the upper side, if you see, again, that is like now the day-to-day operations, wherein all the data which is ingested into this processor or the log sources which are being captured, on those, the data mining and the data analytics will be performed by the SOC analyst. So if in case there are no automation, there is no SOAR technology, there is no next-gen SIM available, all those activities are to be done by the manual consultant, which will take some time for investigation. But if there is an automation or intelligent solutions available, this time frame will be drastically reduced. That is why we call it as an intelligence based platform, wherein all the manual processes or the approaches for incident investigation, the overall timeline gets reduced and the SOC analyst is in a better position to detect and respond to the cyber threats in a proactive manner. Now, again, on a high level, these are our service offerings. If we talk about SOC as a service model, wherein we are primarily into 24/7, 365 days of real-time security monitoring by onboarding all those client critical infrastructure assets, be it on-premise, be it on cloud, whether there is any technology specific dependency. So, basis the client interaction, client discussion, and the requirements, all assets will be onboarded into our SOC operations. Primary responsibility of our team or the monitoring team will be to detect the anomalies, make sure that the alerts are being validated and only real actionable items are being shared with the IT for respective actions. In case of false positives, so of course there are organizations which follow best practices again to make sure that false positives are reduced. Same is the case with our operations, wherein wherever possible, fine tuning is done on all those relevant security solutions or appliances, specifically on SIM technologies, wherein SIM based on the alert correlation, they will just trigger an alert. So addressing the false positives again is the most important factor into our SOC operations or any service provider, wherein the alert noise should be reduced and focus should be only diverted towards the real incidents. IOCs is again indicators of compromise, wherein recently or nowadays it is a trend that whenever there is an advisory published or security threat detected, there are certain parameters or certain metrics which are also being shared by security community, wherein they provide the domain, malicious domains, IP addresses, maybe hash values in terms of SHA, SHA1, SHA256 bits, likewise bytes, I'm sorry. So um, once the organization or once the infrastructure is onboarded, it is a bare minimum commitment from the service provider that 24/7 the real-time SOC operations will be performed without any stoppages, just to make sure that the infrastructure is safeguarded from cyber attacks rising from both like external threats as well as the insider threats. Now to achieve this, we make sure that we have a team of expertise consultants, wherein we have a team of security consultants who are the frontline defenders of irrespective of whether the client operation or our corporate security. So these are the L1 consultants, wherein they are taking care of day-to-day SOC operations and are escalating the events as per the case. Threat hunters is again one of our dedicated team who is primarily focused on threat hunting for insider threats, and they are also working on threat intelligence feeds from the security threats which are rising from the external world. Advisory specialist is again we have a dedicated team of expert consultants who are specifically focused towards onboarding the assets, fine-tuning the configuration of the security solutions, making sure that the day-to-day operations are happening as per the defined processes. If in case any process needs to be fine-tuned, they will recommend what changes or what fine-tuning is required. Along with that, incident responders are a part of this particular team, wherein cases elevated or escalated by L2s are being handled proactively. Along with that, digital forensics, cyber forensics activities are being handled. To talk about or to summarize on our high level SOC as a service offering or deliverables on what we are offering to our clients. So first and foremost is the highly customizable and cost effective solutions. So it is like there was a trend wherein it was like pay per use. So not exactly the same model we are following, but then whatever services the client is willing to opt for, they will be only paying for those services is what we have come up with. Highly scalable solution across industries. So be our client be into technology consulting, into engineering infrastructure, into cloud, we support and we offer all our services to all of these industry verticals. There are security assessment activities also which are covered by our team. To name a few is like brand reputation services, wherein to monitor the brand of that particular client organization. Deep web and dark web scanning is also been covered or is also, can be also been offered. Nowadays, since phishing attacks are on the rise, so we have several agreements or engagements with our client teams, wherein especially the senior management, we have found that they have been targeted by spear phishing mails. So for them, customized training programs have been developed along with phishing simulation. And few additional pointers is like adherence to the compliance standards. So if there is an organization who deals with the payment cards or who are involved into transactions, so adhering to PCI DSS mandates along with the SOC operations, how the organization will be benefited is also being taken care of. Now moving to why SOC as a service. So till now we have gone through like what is a SOC, basics of security operations, the roles and responsibilities, what is the same, Now, why this trend SOC as a service is evolving, or why we thought of delivering this particular service? So, uh, this is an extension to the traditional security operations center, and that is why we are calling it as we are offering it as under SOC as a service model, along with the intelligence, which will be covered later. So now we will just focus on why SOC as a service, the need and the importance of it. So in SOC as a service model, there will be a dedicated account manager which we will be offering, which will take care of the entire client day-to-day operations. So just like a single point of contact. Along with that, though we are already communicating the critical events, incidents to the client appointed point of contact, in a similar way, those kind of critical incidents or alerts will be communicated. Um, there might not be an default service or default activity for proactive threat hunting and threat intelligence in a traditional security operations, because if I just talk about traditional security operations center, there will be a team of L1, L2, L3s and a manager who will just monitor the alerts, who will report it to the client IT and get them resolved. Extension to these activities, we are into threat hunting and threat intelligence services, as I have briefed or listed in the previous slides. Now coming to the next part, that is incident forensics. So wherever there is a cyber incident, digital forensics or cyber forensics is tied to this particular activity, or it is they both go hand in hand. So again, in this particular case, so whenever there are solutions deployed, so our consultant will ensure that those are configured in such a way that first of all the alerts will be reduced or minimized, so that the incidents will be reduced, and so that the digital forensics involvement should also be reduced. But as we already know that even there are giants or major of the industries who are experts into cybersecurity, even they have been compromised, even they have been breached. So same is the case with us. That is, we follow zero trust model of cybersecurity into our offerings, wherein we emphasize the client team that trust no one should be deployed or should be implemented, irrespective of whichever technologies or whichever processes they are into. Log storage and analysis is again for the log retention, log processing as per the compliance needs. So maybe as per the client requirements for their compliance purposes, that will also be taken care of. Tailored communication and escalation, again, as I said, so a proper escalation matrix, a channel will be established with the account manager from the client team and the account manager from the service provider team, so that they both are in sync and there is no room for any gaps in the communication, and to address critical threats which are on priority. Moving to the next part, so defined SLAs and SOPs. So SLAs is, again, we all know, service level agreements, wherein the problem with the traditional SOCs is like the ticket has been raised, but the IT has not taken proactive actions, or they have not yet remediated those particular threats, just uh, because of lack of expertise, or because of manual intervention involved, or because of XYZ reasons. But in our case, since there will be dedicated account manager, and as I have briefed that our SOC consultants will be directly interacting with our account manager, wherein if required, they will also interact with the client IT personnel, just to make sure that all those open incidents or the threats are addressed in defined SLA, and there will be no escalations from the client team or the client management. Ultimately, client management is more responsible on threat remediation, threat eradication, and they would like to see their infrastructure is secured and free from cyber attacks. Compliance controls monitoring, as I have already covered, for an example of an PCI DSS organization, they would like to know whether, as per PCI mandates, whether they are compliant or not, whether their data at rest and data in transit is as per the PCI compliance or not. Now talking about shortcomings of an SIEM, since SIEM is like, as I said, the heart or brain of an SIEM SOC, I mean to say. So what are the shortcomings of an SIEM? So again, be it uh, mostly I will be focusing on traditional SIEM technologies, wherein they are still leveraged. whereas a few of the next gen SIM solutions have uncovered those loopholes or they have evolved themselves. Still, we feel, or as per our experience, we feel that it is highly important that there is a manual intervention involved for alert investigation, at least for all those critical incidents reported. So talking specifically about shortcomings of an SIM solution. So SIM solution, they do not have that expertise to detect zero-day attacks. None of the solution will say that there is a zero-day attack, and yes, the solution has the capability to protect it. Of course, there are some exceptions like virtual patching solutions, but as the focus is towards on SIM technology or SIM solution, they do not have that visibility or capability to protect a zero-day attack, or for that matter, even a ransomware attack. They fail short or lack human intelligence to prioritize attacks. So whatever logs or data have been ingested, whatever rules have been defined, they will just capture those logs, they will normalize the alerts, they will process those alerts, and they will display or populate those alerts in the SIM console, again for the analyst investigation and analyst intervention. Again, SIM solution, they do not have any capability to stop any attack, but they are there just to report the policy violation, threshold violation, and any network anomalies. Again, it depends on the threshold value which have been configured by the SOC analyst, from where the log sources have been captured, how they are stored, how they are retained, and what type of policies and use cases have been defined. To implement the same for one time, first time it is like a tedious activity. Again, it depends on the complexity of the network infrastructure, the physical or the geolocations of the client, how they wish to onboard their assets, whether they have only on-premise setup or only on cloud, or they have a hybrid setup. And again, the major concern of the SOC service providers right now is the false positive ratio, wherein there are most of the clients who would not like to have multiple false positives raised or logged in the SOC setup, again just to save the time of the IT personnel and focus on real threats. So all those issues or the shortcomings we are addressing via our SOC as a service model, wherein the client need not to have to worry about all those factors. The same platform is located into our office premises, wherein it is a ready platform. If I just want to give an example, so it will act like a plug and play model, wherein the client assets will be defined, those will be onboarded, and immediately the SOC operations or SOC as a service model operations can be initiated for the client operations. Now coming to the solution design of SOC as a service model, or the primary objectives, as I said. So what will be those? So first and the foremost part is again real-time security monitoring across 24/7 or round the clock operations, which is again customizable as per the customer requirements. Then to protect the mission critical data and information assets, to protect the data in transit, data at rest, wherever there are communications happening, even those should be monitored by this particular solution. Then the team or the SOC analyst should be ready to prepare for and detect and respond to cyber emergencies. Just imagine that recently there was a major supply chain attack reported for SolarWinds. So in our case, if the client is using that particular product or that particular platform, on a priority basis, it is the job of the SOC analyst and the incident responders to communicate and to come up with a crisis management plan or as incident management plan when there is an confirm confirm impact for the client operations, if that particular solution, that particular technology or the specific platform is in use. Security incident management and cyber forensics is again the same thing. We know that there is a confirmed incident, so what will be the plan? Cyber forensics will come into picture only in cases there is a possible attack or breach detected. So for example, if there is a data breach or possibly a data breach from any computer system or any server, cyber forensics will come into picture. Along with that, if if there is any website defacement activity has been happened, or sus any kind of suspicious alerts have been triggered by the SIM solution, cyber forensics team will be mobilized, and they will start their investigation on what exactly is happening, whether there is any legitimate attack being attacked from the outside world, or are there any internal teams who are working and the SIM is generating false positive. The SOC analyst will also ensure, or the solution has to be in such a way that it will have its own BCP and DR for the business continuity in terms of SOC services for the client operations. So uh, since it is not placed into client infrastructure, client need not to worry about what will be the case or what will happen if the setup itself goes down. Setup in the sense SOC as a service model setup. So client will be free, and they will not have that worry about what will be the BCP and DR plans for their SOC operations, wherein it is like just an outsource to an MSSP. Periodic security assessment activities is again part of our organization, not a directly part of our SOC as a service model, but as I said, we are highly into customized model offerings. So based on the customer requirements, those can still be offered by ourselves. And ultimately, the objective is to strengthen the overall cybersecurity posture of the infrastructure, which should cover uh, like a 360-degree view of the in-house infrastructure, that is the corporate security, alerts occurring or incidences reporting to the internal network, as well as third party or external attacks, external malicious attacks targeted from external world to those corporate entities. To talk about visibility, consider this is the client organization, and we are now offering SOC as a services. So on a high level, we have highlighted a few of the important aspects on what all things which will be covered. So starting with the if I talk about zero trust model of cybersecurity in this particular phase, so you can see authorization and authentication. So wherein zero trust says that trust no one. So each and every user, each and every system, be it a computer system, endpoint, mobile device, or a server, before it is onboarded into the network, it will be thoroughly hardened. Management approvals will be taken. Only then required access will be provisioned for all those assets or for those employees. Network anomalies and monitoring, again, it is a part of SIM onboarding. So whatever network devices are there, be it the IDS IPS solution, firewall technologies, WAF technologies, content filtering, proxy, web gateways, all those, as these technologies will add or will assist the UBA part of the next gen SIM or SOC as a service model, wherein UBA, again, it is like an user entity behavior analytics model, wherein we are tracing the user behavior again to see whether they are the authorized personnel who are doing their legitimate activities or not. So for example, if we are defining a use case for a typical user, if that particular user is day-to-day operations are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So such a use case has been defined for that user, that after the office hours, if that particular user is been logging into the network or to the system, there will be an alert wherein the consultant or the SOC analyst will validate why that particular user has logged in, be it a legitimate requirement, or are there any attackers who has compromised that particular critical entity system. Security incident management, threat detection and response, these are the parts which we already covered, wherein proactively though incidents will be anticipated, necessary controls will be enforced so that the attacks will not be targeted to that specific asset or that particular user or the overall infrastructure as well. Email and web security, as I've covered into the web gateway part. So again, it is a part of SIM onboarding, wherein the technologies will be onboarded to control, mitigate, detect any kind of suspicious phishing mails, targeted phishing mails targeted towards the senior management specifically, And post such kind of activity has been aligned, the ISMS team or the IT team can be alerted, mentioning that they have to send a broadcast message to all their employees that such mail is being circulated and they have to take proactive actions. Now coming to this part of collection of logs and events across the infrastructure, again as a part of the SOC as a service model. So this is the first phase wherein once the SOC as a service solution is being offered to the client, the assets are being onboarded, and then we are collecting or making sure that all the relevant logs from all those relevant sources are being pulled out, are being captured, and they are stored into the logger or the processor for the necessary correlation. So again, as I said, collection and analysis of various types of logs, events generated by various information assets, critical devices, which include network devices, computing devices, servers. Post though logs are captured, use cases will be defined, correlation will be defined, and the alerts will be monitored on a day-to-day basis. And as per the compliance requirements, the logs will be retained for future records. So this will be the primary phase for the collection of logs and events. So the second phase is correlating events to detect cyber attacks and security incidences. So the use cases which are defined are, there are some recently there are SIM solutions which provide default use cases also into them. So again, it is highly recommended that the default use cases should be leveraged by fine tuning it as per the customer requirements or as per the customer business operations. For example, organization policy says that for 5 wrong attempts, there should be an alert trigger and the account should get locked. Again, this is a part of again a compliance mandate, but nowadays organizations have also fine-tuned or customized their values of account lockout and all those. So policy can be defined into SIM which is aligned or which the organization has defined, wherein for till 5 incorrect attempts, alert should be thrown that this particular user from this particular IP address on this particular system is trying to log in, so that further investigation can be done if required. Point number 2 I have mentioned here is about the behavioral patterns. So again, it is a part of user entity behavior analytics, which I've just given an example of, to see why those particular employees or the critical functions in the organization, why they are logging post their office hours. Are there any genuine activities which they are involved into, or are their systems are compromised? The next part is like time frame during which the events or logs are considered. So again, this is related to the UBA part as well, wherein the functions which those employees are supposed to do, those functions are executed post their normal or regular working hours. And how this everything is achieved, this everything or those offenses or those validated incidents or genuine alerts, we can term it in any way, those can be achieved by understanding the network infrastructure first, the client business operations, their requirements, based on which we will be creating those use cases or rules or policies with the help of alert correlation. So few of the use cases which we have listed here is failed authentication request, failed resource access, that is authorization, successful logons after consecutive failed access attempts. Then we have services and processes which are executed or which are initiated on those particular servers, probably not on the endpoints, because usually end user system or endpoint devices, they will not have admin access or admin privileges. So any user might not execute any custom application or try to install it. But then there is a separate use case for all those activities wherein a normal user, his privileges are being elevated to admin user. There is a different alert for this particular activity. And if this kind of alert has been triggered, the next phase will be what type of application that user has installed, whether it is a whitelisted application, whether a request was raised by that particular user to install that application, or for the matter to get admin access, because SOC analyst will not have this visibility what is happening in the IT infrastructure or at the client operations. But then that is what the best measure or best approach is to avoid conflict of interest, wherein let the incidents occur in terms of this one which I have given examples, and let the IT confirm whether this was a planned activity, whether they were knowing about this, whether any configuration change is pre-planned, whether they were authorized to do it or not. And the last part is execution or attempt to execute blocked applications in the network. So here we can say is like uh, usually PowerShell or Bash script are being disabled for execution on endpoints. Those are only allowed or authorized to be executed on server systems, provided they are helping the teams, or they are configured in such a way for like a repetitive job which they need logs or some reports from the servers. So for example, uh, software development team, they might require Burp Suite to test their application, since it is a proxy interception tool. It is used by development teams as well as it is used by the security testing teams. But uh, Nmap or Nikto or Wireshark might not be required by that particular team. So in this case, if we do not have the visibility, or if the client IT is not having visibility which user is running which applications, and if a use case has been defined that Nikto, Nmap, Wireshark, uh, all those scanning tools or port scanners or all those hacking tools, there is a category of alerts which is defined, and we are finding those suspicious users. Post which validation, the IT will confirm which are those users who are authorized or who are allowed to utilize those particular applications. Moving to the next part, so I'm sure we all must be knowing about this life cycle, wherein it is the incident management life cycle defined by the SANS standards. So it has primary 6 phases, that is preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and lessons learned. So I will not go much detail into this phase, but then these are the high level phases wherein if there is any security incident, what SANS has to say is like there are certain standards, certain processes or phases per phase, wherein the SOC analyst should be going through or should be leveraging it, just to make sure that we are well prepared for such an incident, or we are anticipating that there might be an incident. Then the next phase says that we have identified the incident via our day-to-day SOC monitoring. The third phase says that containment, that yes, we have found that particular alert, and that alert is broadcasted to the relevant teams who should be involved into that alert investigation, or for the matter logging the ticket. Followed by eradication, wherein the client IT team will come into picture for the necessary actions which should be taken on the computing devices which are owned by the client. Followed by the recovery, wherein uh, we have to like the SOC analyst should be communicating or assisting the client IT team to neutralize that particular identified threat. And last phase is the lessons learned, wherein the SOC analyst will record the observations of what the incident was, what was the attack pattern, what were the malicious IP addresses, which we know it as indicators of compromise, which are the systems who've been targeted from the client system, what actions have been taken by IT, and what are the proactive steps to avoid such a repetitive incident again in future. Now, the framework or the steps as defined by the SANS. So those are the again a very effective way wherein the incident responders are leveraging that framework. So few additions we have done to this particular security incident framework, wherein uh, predict is like we are anticipating it, that we never know when an attack will be targeted, which form it will come, and which asset it will target. So how do we ensure that we are ready for an attack or for an incident, not only attack, for any alert, any incident? So we should be ready, or we will help the client organizations, or what we incorporate into our SOC offerings or SOC as a service model is like baselining the security solutions to the bare minimum set configuration, which should be effective and efficient to detect the cyber threats, predict the attack patterns by leveraging military attack framework, which will be covered later on, and trust no one. That is again, this is a part of the zero trust model of cybersecurity. Prevent the phase two, prevent, it will be covering the 24/7 SOC operations or alert monitoring, incident containment in case of an incident identification, and vulnerability and threat management. So by running periodic vulnerability and threat management programs, organizations are nowadays, they are in a position to better manage their open issues or open vulnerabilities by effective patch management. So these are the steps to ensure we are reducing the overall attack surface. The third part is the detection phase, wherein the cybersecurity incidents are being detected. Post they are detected, they should be prioritized in the form of either P1 or as per the specific criteria. And then again, it is like the incident which is identified, it should be content in the sense it should be captured, it should be validated, it should be analyzed, and it should be remediated. And the last phase is the response phase, wherein the cybersecurity incident responders will come into picture. Cyber forensics, digital forensics, mitigation will come into picture, and then again proactively how the SOC analysts are ensuring that such type of incident or other should not be repeated again in future. So few additions we have done to the existing model. The next part is the threat intelligence part, wherein this is the pyramid of pain, we call it as, wherein in any SOC incident or any SOC alert that is specifically targeted towards threat intelligence, uh, we all must be knowing, if I dissect indicators of compromise, we have TTPs, we have tools, we have domain names, IP addresses, hash values, which are being reported by the security community. So we will go from bottom up approach, wherein the hash values, the IP addresses, and the domain names are easy to monitor as well as easy to detect and block because of the nature of the alert or the incident which will be disclosed publicly. The SOC analysts are in a better position to capture this type of parameters or metrics. If we talk about tools, so it is a bit challenging to detect which tools the attacker might have leveraged to launch that particular attack, and that is why the military attack framework will come into picture and assist us or assist the SOC analyst. Same is the case with TTPs, that is tactics, techniques, and procedures, wherein we never know from where the attacker has launched the attack, or from which attack surface, which attack pattern the attackers are leveraging or performing their reconnaissance, information gathering, or exploitation activities. So uh, the CV military attack framework will help leverage us in proactive cyber threat or risk mitigation. To talk about SOC as a service use cases, this is on a high level, wherein few of the use cases I will be covering here. Maybe an accidental leakage of personal data due to employee's fault. So for this particular problem statement, what are the recommendations or what solution can be implemented is like, first is security awareness, which can be covered by the ISMS department to make sure that employees are well aware what they should do and what they should not do. Next is the next generation firewall, which will have the rules and policies configured to make sure that uh, necessary access control is provisioned and the logging is being defined. And the third part is the DLP protection, the data leakage protection. The agent will be running on the critical devices, the computing devices, wherever there is a risk of data getting exfiltrated. Uh, few next use cases which I would like to brief is like the third one, leakage of personal data as a result of hacking into web application. So since the target application or the platform is a web application, organizations, if they have web application firewall that can be configured or tuned in such a way that it should be in a condition or it should be in a position to detect and block all those web application layer attacks, and at the backend it should be logged, wherein the logs will be forwarded to the SIM platform, wherein the SOC analyst will gain additional visibility to see which applications were attacked, what were the parameters used, what were the payloads used. Along with that, if there is a requirement that the WAF should be configured additionally, or it should not be the case that there is a misconfiguration and the attacker is easily able to traverse or navigate to the application and dump the database as well. The third last point talks about leakage of personal data as a result of hacking into mobile devices. So for this particular problem statement, MDM solutions are the best solutions wherein they have the entire visibility and coverage for the mobile devices which are owned by the organization, but which are being leveraged or being delivered to the employees for business purposes. BYOD can also be covered into this particular domain, wherein organizations is not owning those devices, but they have given the feasibility to get employees bring their devices, connect to the corporate network, and same can be monitored, or uh, there can be a visibility for those devices as well. The last point I would like to discuss is leakage of personal data as a result of hacking or unauthorized use of cloud application. So this specifically talks about the infrastructure which is hosted on cloud, wherein there are certain solutions like CASB, Cloud Access Security Broker, which can be deployed, which will act as an intermediary gateway in the application hosted on cloud and the service provider to make sure that all the relevant logs, events, uh, whatever anomalies are being configured or been detected, it will be logged and been alerted to the SOC analyst. Now, everything is been covered in terms of the operations side. Talking specifically about reporting side is uh, now how there will be value addition in terms of SOC as a service model, wherein how the management will get to know the real visibility or the insights of what applications are being compromised or what are the severe threats to my network infrastructure, servers, devices, again external hosted application likewise. So several reports specifically which can be of very much of help are being listed here, like top systems targeted and specific services targeted. Uh, Again, there can be reports like specific events and incidents based on applications in use. Then there can be reports of location of alerts, source and target IP addresses from where they are coming from. This will help the SOC analyst as well as the client organization to figure it out if the client businesses are not operating in that particular geographical locations, but still we are able to see several alerts. It can be a sign of and alert or a caution that somebody from that particular region where the business operations are not at all hosted or they do not deal with, there are some communications happening. Reports based on specific time duration of the alert, which I have covered under the UBA part. Then there might be or there can be deliverables in terms of reporting on the impact specific to the system, service, application, infrastructure in case of unavailability. There can be reports published for the ownership of those system application services, wherein those particular stakeholders or the owners will be made aware of the issues or the vulnerabilities or the incidents which are specifically targeted to their assets, which will make them accountable and responsible to get in touch with the relevant IT team as well as the SOC analyst, and how they can leverage the tools and the techniques available to reduce the overall attack surface. The last part is it is related to the change management or the change request. Wherever there are changes happening in the system, services, or applications, organizations should be following defined change approval process, wherein those will be logged at their end, And similarly, at this same console, or SOC analyst can figure it out that there are certain alerts which are being triggered for the changes, which needs to be further confirmed and validated by the client IT personnel. This is again a list of high-level deliverables. So executive summary reports covering the top source and destination, top IP addresses, top attackers, and top services which are attacked. When we have foreign attack summary report, wherein top 10 source countries involved in attacks, top 10 source IPs, and top 10 destination IPs. These all are for external IPs. Then we can also publish a report on web content filtering summary report, wherein we can cover top 10 destinations by domain name, top 10 blocked sources by IP address, top 10 blocked users who are involved into accessing objectionable websites or who are involved into policy violation of the infrastructure or the organizational IT security policy. And one more example of a report can be top 10 failed login summary report, wherein top 10 sources for the failed logins can be reported with the IP address as well as by the help of target usernames as well. Moving to the next part is about the SOC as a service return on investment now. Now, on a high level, we will be discussing on this part. So first is, as I have briefed, that the BCP and DR part is taken care by the services provider. So it's like uninterrupted and comprehensive centralized monitoring, wherein the client infrastructure or client operations are handled in an effective way. Again, the service provider will be responsible to perform the analysis of all information systems, information assets to detect for all those suspicious activities and proactively report it to the client management. Since the client IT team or client management might not have the skill set or the expertise in to have effective incident response and follow best practices, the team or the consultants or the analyst who are a part of this SOC as a service model, they will take care of all those incidents on a proactive basis by adhering to the SLAs. Faster detection of security incidents such as compromises and containment of threat is again a part of the incident response life cycle. Security staffing we have covered in case no expertise is available at the client side. SOC analyst will play a role as an extended security partner, and the incident will be investigated, validated, and basically it is a part of the entire agreement or the engagement. Nowadays, as I've briefed earlier about artificial intelligence and machine learning based capabilities in almost multiple security solutions, it still requires a human assisted machine learning or human assistance to really validate that particular alert and incident, make sure that the system is understanding the overall infrastructure and get the solutions to a more matured state. Next we have is highly customizable solution offerings basis the organizational need and the technologies they are utilizing. And the last part is again wherein there are concerns on the costing part. So as I have mentioned that it is highly customizable. So we also offer fixed and predictable monthly or annual cost based on the services which are offered and based on the services which are being deemed by the client teams. Few of our USPs, that is how we ensure that we are covering the client infrastructure in a more better way. So first is like we have our developed our own application, that is managed security services dashboard application, wherein this is a proprietary application. It is a bundled application in our SOC services, which will give the client senior management real-time visibility of all the security incidents or alert status. So it acts as a ticketing solution wherein the SOC analyst will provide the security incidents and logs, and it will populate into several graphs wherein the client senior management will not be more interested into what are the title of the security alerts, what is the time of it was raised. They will be more interested into which appliances are raising the alerts, how many tickets are opened, how many tickets have been closed by my IT team, why the tickets are not closed, and what is the severity and impact of those incident raised. So everything is covered in this particular application, and that is how it facilitates an added advantage to the senior management to easily understand the overall security infrastructure. Second, we have is the cyber threat post portal application, wherein our team of threat hunters, they're hunting for the threat intelligence advisories, and on a real-time basis, we are publishing all those threats which are specific to client technology or client infrastructure, as well as few generic ones which we feel that those are important, wherein we have to update the client on that particular advisory. So not only security advisories, our team is also proactively publishing the indicators of compromise for the relevant threats, the advisories which have been analyzed and evaluated. I highly recommend everybody in the webinar to visit our website varutru.com/CTP and have a look into this application and do subscribe to it. So with this, I have covered the SOC as a service model, the importance of same, the limitations, and we are now moving to the second part of this webinar, wherein Purnima will brief the participants or the audience on how we are leveraging zero trust model, Mitre attack framework, and the NIST framework into our SOC as a service model. And she will elaborate on few of the use cases wherein how we are working or how we are leveraging these models into our SOC as a service offerings. Purnima, over to you. You can please continue.
Yeah, thank you, Anand. So, as stock as service providers, we follow certain frameworks, standard frameworks, and models during the implementation. So, let us see certain use cases and frameworks that we have currently implemented. So, the first one is the zero trust model. Here, the zero trust model always believes in the principle that never trust and always verify. And it also advises to not to trust anything inside or outside the network perimeter. So, majorly, for all the connections are considered to be potentially malicious before giving them access to any critical assets or any information of the organization. So basically what all the employees have to do is to verify their authentication, so that before giving them access to any information or data, they have to be authenticated. And also it also implements the data security that prioritizes access and restrictions, and it follows the concept of least privilege. Until and unless the employee is proven trustworthy, they won't be given access to anything. And apart from least privilege option, it also uses multi-factor authentication, and also engages identity and access management, and also uses advanced security technology. So this is about the zero trust model. And before giving access to anything, it validates everything that is trying to connect with the critical assets or the protect surface. Anand, next slide. So let us see one use case that we have implemented, that is Kipling method use case. So basically, what is a Kipling method is it is used to whitelist which resources should have access to the protect surface. So what is the protect surface here is it contains all the critical assets, be it database, be it servers, be it any endpoint device, they are considered as a protect surface. So the Kipling method uses the concept of who, what, when, where, why, and how. So what it does is, before giving access to any resources of our organization, we have to get the legitimate answers from this set of questions. So for example, who should be accessing a resource? If an employee is trying to access any resource, who is it? He is the genuine person. Is he the one who can access this resource? So uh, the employee or the user must be legitimate who should be accessing a resource. And next is, what application is being used? Is the proper application being used to access that critical asset? That question needs to be addressed. And then when the resource is being accessed, which user is accessing that particular resource at what time, till what time, the time duration needs to be known, like to what time, from what time till what time he is able to access the resource, and then where is the packet destination and why the packet is trying to access this resource. He or she should have a legitimate reason to access that particular resource. Like he needs to have the particular reason. It should not feel like he's accessing that particular resource to perform some malicious activity. Even this question needs to be addressed, and how the packet is accessing and via specific which specific application. So until and unless all these questions are addressed, we are not going to provide the access to that particular user to any critical assets, to any protect surface of our organization. So this is how the zero trust model is always implemented. This is just one use case of zero trust model, wherein until and unless the user is proven trustworthy, we are not going to give him or her any access to any critical assets of our organization. So this is one use case of the zero trust model. So moving ahead to NIST framework. So NIST, it provides best practices to help organization to manage their cybersecurity risk. So basically, it uh, it uh, it involves us into the threats, vulnerabilities, and the impact. It educates us on the risk profile of the particular organization, and it also recommends provides recommendations to reduce the risk with some customized measures. In the diagram, you can see certain stages of a cyber attack and how we need to overcome such kind of cyber attacks. First, we need to identify the attack, then we need to protect the assets from that particular attack, we need to detect, we need to respond, and we need to recover. These are the five main stages that comes under NIST framework. So this framework basically helps blue team to respond and recover from any sort of cybersecurity incident that occur across the network. And also one more thing what that NIST framework suggests is to have the root cause analysis. If suppose if there is a security incident occurred in our organization, we need to dig the root cause of that particular incident. For example, if there is a phishing email sent to our employees and he or she opens that particular attachment or link, then some virus or any malware has been downloaded in our system. So the initial thing, the root cause of that particular incident was that phishing email. So we need to know how that phishing email entered our organization, how it went through the spam filters, how it overcame the email gateways and also this is the basic root cause analysis. This is just one example of the root cause analysis. Similarly, each and every security incident are supposed to have a root cause analysis, and also we need to do the impact analysis once the security incident has occurred. And also we need to make sure that we are going to take some countermeasures. We are going to prevent such attacks if in case if they are happening in future. So let us see some use cases of NIST cybersecurity framework that we have currently implemented for our clients. So let us consider the basic one, that the possibility of data breach due to the lost laptop. Suppose if any employee of your organization loses his laptop, then how we need to overcome such kind of data breach attacks? If the laptop is having some unauthorized access, if it gets into some other third person hands, so what are the steps that we are going to take in accordance with the NIST framework is first and foremost thing would be monitor the enterprise users activity, user and data activity. Suppose if the laptop is with some attacker who wants to who is trying to get into your organization, the first thing he does is to log in into the system, trying to break the password. It might take him multiple attempts. So we need to continuously monitor. Suppose if he tries like n number of times, for example, 10 number of times, then it is found suspicious. We need to monitor for that particular thing, like who is trying to log in at what time and how many attempts it has been taken for him to log in. So that is the first thing, that is monitoring the user activity and the data activity. And then we need to detect the unauthorized data flows. See, every user will be having a proper behavior as soon as the login and as soon as they perform the activity. So here we can engage user behavioral analytics. So it always create a risk profile, threat profile of a particular user. If it finds some deviation from that, if it finds the deviation from the normal behavior, then it detects that there is some suspicious activity happening across this endpoint. So that is how we can detect the unauthorized access or unauthorized data flows inside that particular system. And then once we detect that unauthorized activities, then we have to report it. We need to alert the client that this is what is happening. Please take certain actions. And then also we need to analyze the impact. Suppose if he is able to log in and if he or she is able to take that some confidential information from that particular laptop, we need to analyze the impact, like what confidential data he or she has been able to access, what is the impact on our business, is it too much confidential, is we have to worry about it, we have to intimidate our clients and all. So that is the analyzing of the impact, and then mitigate the impact losses of data confidentiality. Once we get to know that the data has been compromised, then what we have to do is we need to respond to that breach. And then the very next step is to contain the effects so that the more data is not exposed. We need to immediately block the access to that particular user by any means, and then we need to contain the effect of that particular data breach. And then after all this, after the containment stage, we need to recover that particular device, recover that particular data, and to the fully functioning device like it was earlier. So this is one use case that usually been implemented for all the clients and for ourselves in our organization in case of the if in case if the laptop is due to the lost laptop. And next slide. So one more use case is malware incident use case. So the most of the attackers are trying to infect the devices with malware, be it Trojan, backdoor, rootkit, worm, etc. So there are many types of malware, and the attacker is continuously trying to infect the victims with this kind of malware. So what are the mitigation steps according to the NIST framework is to monitor real-time activities on host. So we need to continuously monitor all the endpoints, and the next step would be to have a proper antivirus software, like not not the traditional one, because nowadays there are many sophisticated attacks which cannot be detected by the traditional antiviruses. So we are going for next gen antivirus, or we can engage EDR. For that for that matter, we can also engage UBA, user behavioral analytics and all. So we need to implement proper tools to detect any malicious behavior in a endpoint device. And then we also need to scan removable media inserted into the host before allowing access. We should always scan any removable media before using it on our endpoints. And then organization should have both host-based and network-based antivirus scanning. Host-based is at a level of the endpoint, and network-based is at a level of network. So we need to have both in place, that is host-based and network-based antivirus scanning. So we'll see one more use case of NIST framework that we have implemented, and that is botnet infection. So botnet infection is nothing but it is majorly used in DDoS attacks, and it is through the botnet the malware is injected or spread across the devices. So attacker always use a botnet to spread the malware across the organization. So the major mitigations that we can take in case of this kind of attacks is to continuously monitor and to have an antivirus in place, and to implement spam filtering to avoid unwanted mass messages. So majorly these botnets or these malwares are delivered through phishing emails via malicious attachments, or it will redirect to certain malicious websites from where the malware is going to get downloaded. So the first at the initial access level only, if we block those kind of emails, then it would be there won't be any effect on our organization. So to have a proper spam filtering is highly necessary for any organization. And then to implement additional mail and web security to counter more individual threats. and use the traffic monitoring solutions to block any malicious connections to any website. Suppose if it is redirecting to any other website, so if the phishing email is redirecting to some malicious website, that traffic should be automatically getting blocked. So for to happen, so for that we need to have the traffic monitoring solutions. So coming to Mitre attack framework, um, so basically, what is a Mitre attack framework? It is a huge knowledge base of tactics, techniques, and procedures, and it is a framework that is used to build detection and incident response process. This is the major framework that is followed by most of the cybersecurity organizations. So TTPs are nothing but they are based on the real-time observation, like how the attacker performs an attack and how the blue team, that is a SOC team, has to defend against those kind of attacks. So for each and every attack vector, there are certain procedures, there are certain tactics, techniques, and procedures, and also they have provided the mitigations to how to overcome such kind of attacks. So here you can see the stages of how the attack is performed. Like first is initial access, then execution, persistence, till command and control. This is the stages that attackers go through before performing the attack. So what the SOC team does is we generally work backwards. Like for example, a phishing email is sent. Consider a phishing email is sent, and we have a proper email gateway or spam filtering in place. So the initial access of the attack vector, suppose if he is sending a phishing email and we block it there itself, the initial access is blocked. So at each and every stage, we should make sure that we have the proper tools to block the attacks. In case of execution, what we can do is we cannot give the access to auto run any files. So that is how we are going to block at the execution level. So we systematically try to block each and every attack at each and every stage. This is how the SOC team works. And we also recommend IT team to patch or reconfigure any vulnerable system. Suppose if there is Microsoft updates and we are not yet updated our systems for any Microsoft Windows 10 operating system, consider it as an example. So we always recommend the IT team to have the latest patches on all the possible devices of the organization. And then Mitre attacks emulation plan helps us to recognize how an attacker is performing the attack. Like it always has a fingerprint that after doing this initial access, he is going to do the execution in this way. There are certain patterns that are present in the database so that we can the SOC team can utilize those and try to mitigate that attack vector in the in the particular stage itself. So let us see some use case of Mitre attack framework. The first one is yeah. So here you can see the databases like under initial access you can see drive-by compromise, hardware additions, and also for each and every stage there are certain set of techniques, tactics that are engaged by the attackers. If you go through one by one, you will get like how the attackers are going to perform the attack. Similarly, for each and every tactics or techniques, there are mitigations provided. So let us see three use cases for Mitre attack framework. So the first one is the basic one, that is phishing email. So adversaries always send phishing message to gain access to victim systems or to gain access to some personal information that are required. They try to do it by any social engineering methods by collecting the data across the social engineering platform. So what they do is they take the certain email IDs or they target certain victims and send certain phishing emails that might have a malicious attachment, that might have a malicious URL through which the malware can be downloaded. So this is how the attacker send the malicious malware to deliver the malware to the victims. So to overcome this kind of attacks, the mitigations that we have to take is implementing proper antivirus or anti-malware solution which can automatically quarantine or isolate that particular malicious file. So this is the major recommendation for the phishing emails so that we have the proper antivirus solution or anti-malware solution at place. And implementing network intrusion prevention system which can scan and remove any sort of malicious email or the attachments or the URLs that are coming along with the phishing emails. And then next is restrict web-based content And one of the major recommendation for the phishing email is to employ or user. I mean, we need to make sure that employees or the users are aware of this kind of social engineering attacks, like how the attackers are trying to send the phishing emails and how we need to overcome that. We should properly train our employees to not to fall for such phishing emails. Okay, so next we will learn about denial of service use case. So what is a denial of service basically? So denial of service is a type of attack on a service that disrupts its normal function and prevents others from other users from accessing it. So uh, suppose you have a critical server or the website which is very much critical for your day-to-day operations and users are trying to access it. So what does the attacker do is he will flood that particular server with the unnecessary traffic and he makes it unavailable for the legitimate users. So that is called as denial of service. He can send half open connections like SYN flood attacks he can perform. He can continuously send the request and then don't respond back to the server. So that is how denial of service attacks are happening. And majorly it uses botnets. The attacker himself doesn't send all the traffic. He uses network of botnets from which he commands them to send the unwanted traffic towards its server so that it doesn't send the, I mean, it should not be available for the legitimate users. So majorly the mitigations for this denial of service attacks are to monitor the network traffic, like whether it is genuine or not, or whether it is simply coming, whether the unwanted traffic is coming towards our assets. So we need to have tools such as NetFlow SNMP, or we can use some custom scripts to detect any spike or any increase in the network traffic. So this is the major recommendation for any denial of service use case. So next slide. So the last use case for Mitre attack is external remote service use case. So basically, threat actors might leverage external facing remote service to initially access or perceive within the network. So the mitigations for this kind of attacks are to disable any or block remotely available services that might not be that might be unnecessary, and then limit access to remote services through centrally managed concentrators such as VPNs and other managed remote access system. The major recommendation for this is to engage two-factor or multi-factor authentication for any remote service account. So always having multi-factor authentication is a recommendation wherever possible. Is a big recommendation from all the frameworks. And then to deny direct remote access to any internal systems by network. So we need to deny any sort of direct remote access. So these are the use cases that we have implemented so far for our clients as for our research. Now let us see the SaaS model once again. Yeah. So these are the phases that a SOC as a service model goes through. So here we will see the 8 stages, like what we are going to perform at each stage. So the first stage is scoping and information gathering. So before implementing this solution, before offering the service completely, so what we do is the first major step is to scoping and information gathering. So we gather the information of all the assets of the organization, and the second stage is we perform a technology gap assessment, and then next stage would be SIEM implementation and fine tuning. For the assets gathered, for the log sources that we have, we implement the SIEM and log sources. We use the collectors, we use the processors, and then we implement the SIEM. And next is log collection and correlation. So once we have implemented the SIEM, we derive those logs from multiple log sources, be it servers, be it endpoints, be it firewall, antivirus, whatever tool it is. We collect the logs from that particular device and do the correlation. And then next is use cases and policy definition. So Anant has explained various use cases. So according to that, we create the policies and we make sure that all the attacks are being addressed in that policies. So for example, we create policy to detect the phishing emails or any brute force attempt or any DOS attacks. So it comes under the policy definition. And next is security program maturity. So after defining the use cases, after doing after creating the policies, next stage is the security program maturity, and after that comes security advisory and threat intelligence. So this is additional, something additional, which will overcome any future possible attacks. Like there is a malware detected today, and it has certain indicators of compromise. Through the security advisory service, we intimate the client that these are the indicators of compromise for the malware that has been discovered today, and you need to block this particular IOCs at all the possible levels. So that is the recommendation that we give to the client. And if the client immediately blocks those IOCs, then he will be not affected from that particular malware. So this is a security advisory and the threat intelligence that we are going to provide to the client. Similarly, in case of any vulnerability found in any client specific infrastructure or whatever the technology that they have been using, so even we intimidated to the client that these are the patches that have been released, you need to patch that immediately. So this comes under the security advisory and threat intelligence. And the last is this knowledge base and ticketing. So as and how we get the alerts, we raise the tickets with all the knowledge. For suppose there is a brute force attack detected, then we raise a ticket. We educate the client that what is a brute force attack and what are the recommendations that he needs to take to overcome that particular attack. So this is how the ticketing works. And then these are the eight stages of SOC as a service phases. Over to you, Anand.
Yeah, thank you, Purnima, for the briefing. With this, we have now come to the end of this webinar, wherein we just to summarize the entire webinar, we went through the entire journey of the traditional SOC. Then we went to the SOC as a service model. We discussed about the traditional SIM, then next gen SIMs, and a few use cases with respect to the SOC as a service model offering, and how we are making sure that the client infrastructure is secured and is protected by our intelligence based approaches, by leveraging and by covering the three key important factors which we have discussed. Is first is about the NIST cybersecurity framework, second is the zero trust model of cybersecurity, and third is the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So we would like to thank each and everyone for taking out time from their busy schedule, and we have come up to the end. We have well covered in time. So if there are any questions, we would be happy to answer them. Any questions from anybody? Okay, if there are no further questions, I would recommend and encourage the to visit our websites for any additional information or any kind of professional support services which you are looking forward for. So do visit the websites, get in touch with us for any of your cybersecurity requirements, and we will be definitely happy to assist you on that part. So with this, I conclude that we are closing this webinar for today, and we are coming up with additional webinars in the entire series of SOC as a service model. So just to give a heads up, there are two additional webinars upcoming in pipeline, which will be focusing on specifically for the zero trust model of cybersecurity in detail, and the second is the MITRE ATT&CK framework in incident response. So once we are ready with the schedule, we will surely be circulating to the audiences on various social media platforms. And I really appreciate you taking time today. And I wish Purnima and myself, both wish that you will also be a part of our upcoming webinar series as well. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. Take care. Have a great day ahead. Bye.
Thank you everyone for attending.